Jessica Le Masurier, I know that for the fire department it's the same thing. Tell us where you are.
I am outside Engine Company 21, which is in Midtown Manhattan on 40th Street. Firefighters here were called to the site of the attacks after the first plane hit and the captain, Billy Burke, lost his life. I've spoken to the firefighters who were there that day and some who joined the firefighting service at a later date about what happened that day, and they will in particular be honouring Billy Burke, their captain, their former captain, who they say sacrificed himself for his colleagues. He was in the North Tower. They told me, went inside and used his tools to pry open an elevator there, rescuing a woman who was inside the lift. And then he went up in the only functioning elevator after the plane had hit and got to the 24th floor. He was with his colleagues at that time. There was a man in a wheelchair and other office workers. They couldn't get the man in the wheelchair down. It was impossible to carry him. He was too heavy. And Captain Burke told his colleagues, go down and get out. He didn't tell them at the time, but he must have known that he was going to die because the building was already shaking and beginning to come down. So real tales of the heroism of that day. I spoke to a 37-year-old firefighter here, Kenny Benitez, and he told me that at the time of those attacks, he was just a 17-year-old high school student, and that he remembers it well because he saw the second tower collapse from his high school window in Queens, and that was one of the things, the response from first responders and firefighters that day, that encouraged him to then become a firefighter later on himself. And he says that he's spoken to a lot of his colleagues who were there on that day, including Zachary Vals. You may well remember there is an iconic photo from that day of Father Judge, who was the FDNY chaplain, who went down to give those who were at the scene and firefighters their last rites, let's say, and he ended up being killed by debris himself. And there's a photo which it's framed almost, it's like a Renaissance painting of Zachary and other people carrying the chaplain out of the rubble, and the chaplain is, of course, visibly dead in that picture. Zachary was reportedly so traumatized by the things that he had to witness that day that at times he would just go blank and stare into space. So sad stories here, stories of courage and also really a day of mourning for these people. They're going to be all gathering here, driving their truck out. Their old truck, Engine 21, is actually one of the only two that is on display at the 9/11 Memorial Museum, and you can read more about the members of the unit that were down there on that day. One of the other firefighters who went to the scene that day, Woody Woodward, he rode his daughter's bike to get there. He died, I believe, just a year ago from 9/11 related illnesses.
Ronnie Geese, Brian Sweeney, he was a fine with us.
Former New York firefighter Richard Roll finds it hard to come here. Richie spent days sifting through the rubble, searching for survivors after 9/11.
I was just praying I was going to bring somebody home. And it breaks my friggin' heart that I didn't bring anyone home but a piece of garment with something on it for somebody. That's not somebody.
Richie risked his life to help others, and it took a huge toll on his health. One of his lungs doesn't work properly anymore.
Do you need water?
No, I'm good.
Richie also has PTSD. His therapy dog, Nutella, is always with him. Survivor Anne-Marie Principe is fighting off her second 9/11 related cancer. She also suffers from trauma due to what she witnessed that day.
There were people up on the roof hoping that the helicopters would be able to get them. The smoke was so intense, and the heat was so intense that the choppers couldn't land. And initially we thought it was furniture coming out the windows, and then we realized it was people. And then when the towers came down, we all started to run. It was just black. It was smoke and ash and dust. You couldn't breathe because you were taking all of that in every day. You would cough up ash. It would come out in your skin. You would sweat ash and dust. And psychologically, that was, as Richie said, how do you reconcile that in your head? Because you know what that is. It's buildings and it's people.
Richie and Anne-Marie are part of the Feel Good Foundation, which lobbies government on behalf of first responders and others who survived the terror attacks in order to make sure they get the medical treatment they need. Back at his old firehouse in Merrick, Long Island, Richie is happy to see his friends. 9/11 still feels like yesterday.
Still angry and still hurt over it. And getting sicker and sicker, that affects it. But the main thing is that we never forgot, and we will never forget or forgive.
Despite his long list of health problems, Richie is using all his energy to make sure that others suffering from illnesses caused by the terror attacks on September 11th, 2001 are not forgotten.